I'm going to try to make this video quick. It's an educational video. There is no footage of any rehearsal in this video, just to let you know in advance. I'm going to explain my theories and rationale and process to how I get a beginning band to successfully sight read a grade 1/2. And that's something that we're getting ready to do here in just maybe the end of this week, beginning of next week. I'm going to show you the end result of that here in the next week or two. But what I've done is I've broken down on this piece of paper, which I'm going to show you here in a little bit, all of the elements that the kids need to know in order to successfully sight read a grade 1/2. And when I say successfully, I mean look at it, understand all of the elements in it, and be able to read it in time so that everybody stays together and it comes out sounding coherent and nobody's confused about what's going on, which I know sounds like a pretty huge task. And there are a couple of different ways that you can go about this. If you've been following all of my thoughts from the beginning band director post, it's going to be kind of redundant, but I'll say it again. Method one is to say, okay, I want the kids to understand how to read a grade 1/2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them a whole bunch of grade 1/2 music, or some directors might even just give one or two 1/2 songs at the beginning of the semester, like in October, and say, okay, we're going to learn these by December, and we're going to perform them at the concert. So you pass it out to the kids. They don't know a lot of the rhythms, they don't know a lot of the notes, and you spend the next couple of months teaching those notes, teaching those rhythms, teaching how they go together, drilling it one measure at a time, until finally it sounds halfway decent and you perform it. And then the problem becomes, and the only reason I'm saying this is because I know this for a fact, because I've been there and I've done it myself. The first few years of teaching, this is how I taught. So I'm not harping on anybody, I'm just saying I've been there and I've seen both sides of it, so I learned it the hard way. I do not believe that it is a good thing to do to try to teach musical elements by giving a song that has stuff in it that the kids have never seen before. They're going to fall flat on their faces. My philosophy is teach the musical elements ahead of time, then give them a song to sight read and they're going to nail it. And not only that, they can just nail song after song after song after song to the point where you can just give them a 0.5 at the Christmas concert and they'd just be able to read it. To me, that's a whole lot more beneficial than giving them something they can't do already, drilling it, and then finding out that they never really understood the musical elements. All they did was learn that song, and then when they try to sight read another one with the same elements in it, they can't do it because they learned what it meant in that song, but they didn't learn what those things meant just in music in general. So, I've got an honor band that I haven't shown videos of yet. I'm going to here in the next week or two. And what we have been doing is drilling some ensemble concepts. And we've been drilling everything in my rank 1, and that's 10 points. What I did was I chose 10 key songs out of Essential Elements from pages 4 through 13, which for those of you who know Essential Elements, 13 is where it breaks into full band arrangements and it has music for a first concert, like a Christmas concert or something. Or some of you use it like in October for a concert in October. But the way that Essential Elements book is made, and I don't know this from hearing it from anybody or reading it from anybody, it's just the way that I have observed it in my own teaching, is when you get up to that point with the full band arrangements around page 13, what that represents is the spot where if kids have mastered all of that, and I say mastered, not just run through it, but mastered it, then they should theoretically be able to sight read any grade 0.5 song ever, because it covers everything. So I chose the 10 key songs that taught those new concepts, and I've been drilling them. Okay, we're going to take a look at this paper, and I'm going to break down for you exactly what a kid needs to know and understand and be literate in order to read a grade 0.5. So this is my insanely short list of things that you need to know in order to sight read a grade 0.5 successfully. And it says, what do you need to know to sight read a grade .5 piece? Not very much. You need to know the first 5 notes of a concert B-flat scale, B-flat, C, D, E-flat, F on every instrument. You're going to need to know these rhythms: whole note, whole rest, half note, half rest, quarter note, quarter rest, 2 eighth notes. You're not going to see a single eighth note or eighth rest in this music. You might in the percussion part, rarely, but in everybody else's part, no. And other things: piano, mezzo forte, forte rarely. If you do have it, usually it's just going to be the piano and the forte. You're not going to see very many repeat marks, but you will occasionally. And most all of it's going to be in 4/4. And now I have other considerations. And I put other considerations because I guess technically, theoretically, the kids don't need to be really good at this part. I mean, it would be nice if they did. It makes it sound better. Starting and stopping together. Balance, blend, intonation. Internal monologue or dialogue, and that's for counting to yourself. Breathing. Basically, like I said, this is my rank 1, or pages 4 through 13 of the Essential Elements book. Now, what I'm doing is I'm making a video right now that shows how I teach each one of these concepts. Now, I'm going to start with these first 5 notes of the concert B-flat scale. I've got a couple of ways that I do this. Number 1 is the very first lesson that I ever have with kids. I give them 3 sets of flashcards. Set 1 looks like this. Alto saxophone flashcard, set 1, a G. Backside shows you the fingering for G. There is only one thing that the kids have to figure out how to do on this, and that is associate a letter name with a fingering. I believe they need to master that first. Excuse me, I got a bit of a cold today. After they have mastered that, they move on to flashcard set 2, where they're now going to see the note on a staff. Turn it over, it'll tell them the name of the note and the fingering. I believe it is not wise, I mean it works, but it's not completely wise to start with this, because that gives them 2 things they have to do. They have to figure out the name of the note, and they have to figure out the fingering. If they start with this first, that eliminates a step. They master that, they can use what they've mastered to then figure this out. And really, some of these kids can do it in a day. Using that method. And I tell them once they get done with these, give them back to me, because I'll give them to another group. By the way, these flashcards that I've made are in my Google Drive on my Thoughts from a Beginning Band Director site on Facebook. You can print them off. I used cardstock, different colored cardstock for each flashcard set. I took them to the print shop in town, $7 they cut them out for me. And then what I do is I put them in a little baggie. So I'm going to paper clip these, put them in a bag. Each kid gets a little baggie. Alright, and then I told you there's 3 flashcard sets. The other one looks like this. So these are extras. And it reminds them what they learned in elementary school. And then I explained to the kids that something they may not know, because I know either they haven't been told this in elementary school, or they have and then they've forgotten. Whenever they put it all together, it's in alphabetical order. A lot of times kids don't realize this, and I think it's important that they realize it. So I just put that in there for them to study. Then, that will work for most kids, but it won't work for all kids, because, excuse me, as we all know, some kids just aren't going to study it. Some kids are going to study it, and they're not going to get it. So there's a couple of drills that I use. I've got these 6th grade winter warm-ups, and we got our 5-note scale there. Then we've got our major scale and whole notes. Major scale a little quicker. Finally, major scale using 8th notes. When we always talk about tonguing when we do this, and we start with just this scale. And I've got numbers under each one of the notes. That is because what I can then do is I can say, okay, we're going to play note number 3. Everybody plays note number 3. We're going to play note number 1. Note number 5. As we're doing this, I'm telling the kids to do it just as quickly as they possibly can. Whoever makes the noise first is the winner in the group. But then we're going to hold it out until everybody gets it. And it's pretty well a flashcard drill with these kids. I tell them to not use letters if they can go without letters. One thing that just popped in my mind as I'm speaking, and I'm gonna go do this. It'd be cool if there was a backside to this. This was exactly the same, that had the letters written in, and then a side that didn't have the letters written in. So that if they wanted to practice at the first part of the year with the letters written in, they could, but then they could flip it over and do it without the letters. I like that idea. We're gonna do that. So anyway, then what we'll do is I'll do a timed drill where I get the stopwatch out on my phone, and I will just take individuals, and I usually do this in sectionals, but you can do it in a large group also, and I'll just say a number, they play it as fast as they can. 5, bum, 1, ba, 2, da, 3, da, 4, da, and they're going to do that. No, I don't have perfect pitch. I don't know if that was right or not. But they're going to do that. I'm going to time them, and I'm going to tell them that I want everybody in the group to be able to do that in 10 seconds or less. If you want to be really, really good at it, do it in 5 seconds or less. And so far, the record has been 3 seconds. Some of the really good kids, you have to start saying the number as you hear them playing the note so that you can go fast enough to get them 3 or 4 seconds. So we do that so that the kids can learn those notes very quickly. They have to not only know the notes, but they have to recognize them very quickly if they're going to sight read, because they're going to have to process all this very quickly. So that's what we work on. So that's how I drill the first 5 notes of a concert B-flat scale. Now, moving on to rhythms. This is a very, very complicated subject that I'm going to go into quite a bit of depth on, and it's totally based off of David Newell's Teaching Rhythm. I am going to make some videos. I've actually already started, but I'm clipping them together because I only use about 1 or 2 minutes per class period. And once I've gone through about 2 weeks of that, I will edit it together and show you what that looks like. But then just during warm-ups, we will take variations of this. I will play 4 beats. They will echo me. I will play 4 beats, and then I will speak them. Da, 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 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then they will speak echo me. So they can start to hear what the counting sounds like. Eventually, I work it to where I can play 4, they can speak it. I play da, 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 they speak da, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, etc. So they're learning pretty well how to dictate, mental dictation of these rhythms. Then I start flashing the rhythms on the board, which is especially helpful with these 8th note rhythms. While I play them, they echo, but they can see what they look like. Excuse me. Eventually, I don't have it be an echo anymore. I just show the rhythm on the board, and they play it, and then by then they've learned how to read it, and they're literate at it, and they're fluent at it. They didn't learn just how to play a measure in a random song that uses these, where all they really learned was how that measure went and not what these are, because that's what we call learning by rote. This is not learning by rote. This is learning literacy. I know it sounds on the surface like it's learning by rote because I'm having them echo me whenever I do things, and people would argue, well, that's learning by rote. You're showing them what it sounds like, they're playing it back. That has to happen. It has to happen at the beginning, because I can't just show them this and say, play that, without first showing them what it sounds like and what it looks like. So, learning by rote, the elements outside of the music is essential. I cannot overemphasize that. If there's anything you're going to learn from me by watching these videos, I want it to be that. You're going to have to learn that by rote. Then, when you read a song, they are reading rhythms, they are reading notes, and they sound correct, and they are no longer asking, how does this go? Because the moment that they ask, how does this go, and you hum it to them, then you're teaching by rote. This is not teaching by rote. All right, moving on to these, and like I say, I'm going to have probably a good hour's worth of demonstration on how this works here in the next couple of weeks. There are different ways that you can teach these dynamics. I really like Ed Lisk's way from his Creative Directors series, and that's what I use a lot of times, especially with my more advanced kids. Just draw a dial and say it's like a volume dial where this is really loud over here and this is really soft here. And we're going to say zeros here And we're just going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then what I'm going to do with the band is I'm going to draw this on the board, and then I'm going to stand in front of it, and I'm going to have them play any note, tuning note maybe, and I'm going to do this, and they're going to go louder, softer, louder, softer. This is going to be as loud as they can play, point in this direction. That's going to be as soft as they can play over here. That's medium. Ugh, sorry about the cold. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to label this. And I'm going to start pointing at the different labels as they're playing it. And what they're doing now is they're associating what it sounds like and what it feels like for these different dynamic levels that they were already able to play. Occasionally we'll go back to that and we'll review what each one of those is, because, face it, you can't just say medium loud and expect them to know what that means. You're going to have to adjust their volume for them as a group and say to them, this is what medium loud sounds like. And then you can't expect them to remember that from day to day. You're going to have to drill it, and you're going to have to tell them, okay, you're not medium loud right now, you're loud, can we back it off? Typically beginners are going to play way louder. They're going to be here or here, and you're going to be trying to get them here, and it's never going to actually really happen for a while. So that's a good way to drill it. Alright, other considerations. I do a lot of this at the beginning of class. In fact, the very first day I start doing this, starting and stopping together, and breathing is going to be in on this. You got to breathe with me on count 4, and then start with the tongue. 1, 2, 3, breathe, ta, and then have them listen to it. And say, did we all start together right on beat 1? You're going to have to show them what a downbeat looks like and explain what a downbeat is, and say, hey, your sound is going to have to start on this downbeat when my baton reaches this point. Stopping together rarely happens unless you tell them to, and they won't even realize it. They might be able to start together, but you're going to find, if you really pay attention, that they're not stopping together. They might be several beats off from each other, actually. People tend to play too long, and the reason is they aren't counting in their head, or they don't understand the concept. You have to explain to them that if they're going to play a whole note, and that's what I start with, that it has to stop on beat 1. You have to play through beat 4. So when I say that I have a 4-count note, that means I have to play through count 4. If I have a 2-count note, I have to play through count 2 to the next beat, to count 3. And then you demonstrate 1, 2, 3, 4, stop, like that. And then you practice starting and stopping together and have them listen for those things. Now, there are all kinds of things you can do with balance and blend and intonation, and that's going to gradually get more and more complex. At this level, when they're just starting, I almost didn't come to work today. I didn't want to take the day off, though. When they're just starting, the main thing is just to tell them that, hey, we need to be playing over here and not over here. If you're all trying to hear yourself, which is what they're going to be doing when they first start, they're all going to be trying to play loud enough that they can hear over the other people. It's going to sound completely awful. Your band will sound so much different if that is the case, if you just take a couple of minutes to explain to them that they need to be over here. And what you can do is you can tell them a couple of different things. You can tell them that, number 1, you are trying to make a blended sound. You are no longer an individual, you are a group. From the audience perspective, what you want to hear is one sound. If they can hear anybody sticking out amongst the whole group, then they're not doing it correctly. They need to blend together. To do that, they need to play quieter than the person beside them, which I know theoretically is impossible, but it's a good thing to think about. Listen to the people around you. Can you play quieter than the people around you? Can you blend in with their sound? Imagine that you have a microphone on your instrument and it's recording your sound level. I'm going to give the person who's playing the quietest, who it records the quietest, $1 million. Who's that going to be? Have them play. You'll notice an immediate difference. And then later on you start talking about pyramid dynamics and that kind of thing. But the first thing that you want to do is just get them playing here. Now they're going to forget that. You're going to have to remind them that every single day. I've had bands I've had to remind of every single day for the entire year. But never give up on that. That's important. As far as intonation, as soon as they can keep a steady tone on their instrument, at that point I then show them how to use their tuner. And I do that in small group lessons. And then I expect them to tune every single day. I have tuners on every stand. You can get them on Amazon for like $17, I think it is. And those tuners sense vibration so that everybody in the band can tune at the exact same time, and it's only going to hear you. So everybody tunes before class. You can't have good balance and blend without being in tune. It's impossible. As far as breathing, a couple of different ways that you can practice that. There's the breathing gym, which I'm going to say I'm completely unfamiliar with. It looks like an awesome thing. I admit I haven't had time to look into it. I'm going to Midwest this year. I want to see some demonstrations of it at Midwest and at the Illinois Music Educator conference in January. But that's one of my next steps because I think that that's something that my kids really need. So I can't help you on that one. I hope to in the future. But we do a couple of games. Number one is see who can play the longest note. Percussionist, raise your hand. You're going to blow. And when you're out of air, put your hand down. I'll know you're done. The rest of you, pick any note that you want. Whoever plays the longest wins. Give them some candy if you want. And whenever you're done playing, just drop out and listen. No talking, please. Once you're done, just wait till the game's over. And we'll do that a couple of times. But then after the first run through, what we'll do is we will discuss what could we do to help us to play longer. Do we need to pick a different note in a different range? Should we play softer to conserve our air? Do we need to engage any muscles? And we talk about diaphragm support, breath support, size of embouchure. And then they do a better job of that. You can also pick a song and tell them that they can't take a breath. Have them take a really big breath at the beginning and play as long as they possibly can without breathing. When they run out of air, they stop. Percussionist, we're going to play the bells. You're going to blow as we play. Whenever you run out of air, stop playing, just so you can join in with us. And we'll see who can go the longest playing a phrase without breathing. This makes the phrases sound smoother. And it's not going to be a miracle cure right at the beginning, but some time spent doing that works wonders. And then what we do is we tell the kids, breathe exactly that way, even if you're just playing one measure of quarter notes. That's going to help the brass players to get the high notes to come out 4 in a row. Say they have to play 4, say the drummers are playing 4 Gs, which is the highest note that we've learned. They got to breathe like that in order to get those notes to come out. Internal dialogue, monologue. I can't remember where I learned this, but I know part of it was from Ed Lisk's creative director. The deal being that not every student has an internal dialogue. Wrap your mind around that for a second. Most of us, whenever we're sitting alone, quiet, in fact, if you're like me, it never shuts off and you're trying to sleep at 3 in the morning and it's still going. But we're talking to ourselves. We're having a conversation inside of our heads. Not everybody has this. To some people, this is a completely foreign concept. I even talked to a person once. This is back when I was in high school. I was talking to another high school, and she didn't even know this was a thing. Had no clue what I was talking about. Thought I was crazy. Never, ever heard her own voice inside of her head. And that's when it dawned on me that there are people like this out there. Now, we're telling kids to count to 4 in their head. And some of these poor kids are sitting there thinking, what on earth are you talking about? How do I count to 4 in my head? And that's why they can't count. We have to teach them how to do this. Now, for 95% of the class, made up number, this is going to be an easy concept. But for the other 5%, they're going to completely ignore you because you're speaking a foreign language here. So, here's what you do. Excuse me. We are going to count to 4 over and over again as a group. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. As we're doing this, I'm keeping a steady beat, either with a metronome or I'm clapping it or something, just so they can hear it. Now, I'm going to raise my hand. As I'm raising my hand, you're going to count out loud, and as I lower my hand, you're going to count in your head. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. 3, 4. They're going to be pretty good at this. And I don't know why, but they seem to like that. For some reason, it's kind of a simple thing, but they get into it. Then you can change it to 6, or you can change it to 8, or you can change it to 15 if you want to. Next step, don't tap while you're doing it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. 2, 3, 4. Now, of course, that was a really long time that we just did that. They're not going to be able to do it that long. But use a nice, steady beat that they can feel, which would be about right here. Not too fast, not too slow, or else they're going to mess it up. And then just leave out a couple of beats at a time, a couple more beats at a time until they can do longer passages like that. And that gets all of them counting in their head, and that teaches them what it actually means to count in their head. Let's face it, if you're going to ask them to do it, we need to explain to them how to do it. All right, that covers everything. Now, theoretically, after you've taught that, you've drilled the notes, you've drilled the rhythms, you've made them literate at these rhythms, which, oddly enough, we do this without even explaining them. I think that they learn them a whole lot better if you don't explain them, and then if you do explain them. We've got them playing well because you're playing with good dynamics. They understand what a downbeat is. They understand how to count to 4 and then start back over at 1. They can breathe together. They have good tone. They're starting and stopping together with good balance. They're blending in. At that point, drop a grade 0.5 in front of them and then listen to what happens. My band has not played a full band arrangement yet, and they've only been meeting for 2 weeks. We're finishing up this process. I am recording it, and I'm going to clip it all together so that you can see each one of these elements from several different rehearsals and see how it works over the course of several weeks or several rehearsals. And then, all of a sudden, they can play any grade 0.5 piece. All you gotta do is just keep on boom, 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 putting it in front of them. And at that point, you can just take one that they're able to play real easily, and maybe you'll spend some more time on that, showing them what it's like to work up a song, to make it perfect, to balance and blend the individual parts. You're going to talk about things like musicianship. You're going to talk about breathing together, bringing out the melody, backing off on the harmony part, pyramid dynamics. They're going to know how to play the notes. They're going to know how to play the rhythms. And that's really all there is to it. And then you're talking about musical elements and not literacy. Now, backtracking to what I said at the beginning of the video, the second method of doing this is to totally disregard all this. Just put a grade 0.5 in front of them and have them trip all over themselves, and then say, oh no, this goes like this. This goes like this. Now play that quieter, play that softer, play that louder right there. Eventually, you've spent an enormous amount of time trying to make one song sound very good. And I will say, most of us do a very good job of that. We make it sound really good. Problem being, the kids have learned nothing. They have learned how to play that song. They have not mastered this. All right. I'm going to go back to recording some of these videos, and in about a week, I will post the first video of my kids after this process is done, sight reading for you.